Hello and welcome to France 24. We are at Les Rencontres Économiques, a sort of little Davos in the south of France. And my guest today is Moud Goba. She is the national manager at Micro Rainbow, an initiative that helps support LGBT plus refugees in the UK. Moud Goba, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Homosexuality is still criminalized in more than 60 countries around the world. And you left Zimbabwe 2 decades ago after years of persecution for being a lesbian.
Yes.
What was it like for you when you arrived in the UK and became a refugee?
It was a challenge, but also I have to acknowledge that I was happy to be free. I was happy to be myself. But going through the asylum system was not really easy because you have to still prove that you're gay. You have to have evidence. You have to prove your sexuality. And it is a time where you live in poverty because people are not allowed to work in the UK if you're an asylum seeker. So it was like bittersweet having the freedom and also going through this new extreme challenge, which is quite dehumanizing.
You said that you had to prove it to the Home Office. How does one even do that?
How would you prove your sexuality?
Exactly.
I was quite lucky because I had already been sort of an activist and I was quite out there, and I joined different groups, including Black Lesbian UK. I used to go to Pride, so which meant I had pictures, and obviously I had to humble myself and ask, including some ex-girlfriends, say, can you write me a letter to say that we were together? It's quite difficult to find evidence, but sometimes you have to.
What is Micro Rainbow and why does it matter so much to you?
I was really passionate about Micro Rainbow, working for Micro Rainbow because of my own personal experience, of the experiences I went through the asylum process. Micro Rainbow is an organization that supports LGBTQI, people seeking asylum and refugees. And we do so in providing safe housing, social inclusion, and integration, employability when people get status. So when refugees come, sometimes they are with other refugees. But being LGBTQI and being placed with refugees from your home country, sometimes you still experience that persecution because you still have people who are against you because you're gay, and there were people being beaten up, there were people abandoning their accommodation to run away from this homophobia, and they become homeless. So it was that situation we were trying to resolve in providing safe accommodation.
And you struggled financially when you arrived in the UK. Is there a relationship between poverty and sexual orientation?
There definitely is. I think for refugees, certainly. Say, for example, when you're in asylum seeker, you can't work. And you get, I think, £40 a week from the Home Office.
£40?
£40 a week. That covers your food. If you're a woman, that covers your menstrual period stuff. That covers your transport. It's really not enough to survive on. And while you're waiting and not working, that means you're missing out on, you now have a gap in your career if you had a profession before. And to start again, once you get your refugee status, that means you need credit. You don't have credit background to prove yourself. That means you have to start again with work. You don't have English work experience. So there is a gap there where you have to be living in poverty, where you try to rebuild yourself again. So it's that starting again. You've been in this process that it is dehumanizing. Your confidence is at a low. You have to really start building yourself up again. So it's such a challenge.
Black people within the LGBTQ community face even more discrimination. Do you also work on that issue?
On that, I work with UK Black Pride. And the reason why we had this space was because we can talk about intersectionality. You know, you're black, and that's race. You LGBTQI, that's sexuality. And you're a migrant and a refugee. There's all these different aspects to you as a person. And if you're a woman, you also experience discrimination because you're a woman, because of your gender. So there's all these intersecting parts of yourselves that make the whole of you. So it's almost like you have to engage with different parts, engage with race, engage with gender, engage with sexuality. And we needed UK Black Pride to be a place where people just come as they are and celebrate their sexuality, a safe space to be able to do so and still be able to call out some of the issues that they experience in their communities.
And have things improved?
I think things are improving, but we still have a lot to take apart and a lot to work on. I know that for some, because we have queer marriage, for mainstream communities, Pride is just now a big celebration. But we have to remember that there are members of our community who are not able to celebrate. You know, if they're from certain cultures, if they're from certain religious backgrounds, they may not be as free to celebrate. Or if they're refugees, they're there in the community, unable to join the main celebration. So small steps of progress.
And you also have been involved in the safe integration of LGBTQ refugees arriving in the UK from Afghanistan. What was their situation like?
It was quite dire. I think in 2021, the UK government, supported by Stonewall and Rainbow Railroad, evacuated quite a number of LGBTQI people from Afghanistan when the Taliban hit. And when they arrived in the UK, our job as Micro Rainbow was to support them, to be that first point of contact. And, you know, I remember meeting someone for the first time and asking them their name. And it was the first time they said their name as a woman, as a trans person.
Okay.
To say, you know, my name is, and this is who I am. And, you know, they cried so much to have that freedom to be able to just say, this is who I am. It's also giving them that safe landing, that safe space, you know, finding jobs, getting to know the UK, little things we take for granted to know, life in the UK, employability, making sure that they have English lessons. And then the biggest part of the challenge was also ensuring that they have psychosocial support.
Mental health.
Mental health, because, you know, they have left their partners behind. Some have witnessed their partners being killed. Some have witnessed their families being killed. Some are still, you know, they were the only male member of the household and they've left their mothers and sisters. And now the mothers and sisters don't have a male person to support them through life. So it's really dealing with a lot of support on the mental health front.
And one final question, is it harder for LGBTQ refugees to become full citizens?
I think along with other refugees, we have to think that it's already a challenge for refugees. And when you're LGBTQI, there's an additional challenge. When you're a refugee, you really get support from the refugee community. There's a lot of technical support from people from the same country. But when you're LGBTQI, you can't go to that space. Or if you do go to that space, initially you're welcomed. When they find out why you claimed asylum, you're pushed out. So there's a lot of isolation. So it does take a longer time for people to become citizens or to assimilate or to really live their full lives.
Thank you, Moud Goba. That's all we have time for. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us on our social platforms. Until then, thanks for watching.